All right, listen up. The year is 2020. The tier list boom has mostly passed us, and in my estimation, every type of tier list has been made, except for one. Because this type of tier list could not be made before every other type of tier list was made. This is a tier list, a comprehensive stratification of the various types of tier lists. And I know what you're thinking. You think I'm mad. You think that such a monumental task could impossibly be done. And to that I say this. It was easy. Everyone else was just too scared to do it. Either that or I'm the only one dumb enough to consider doing something like this. Before we begin, I'm going to explain my thoughts and methodology. I will be grading tier lists based on their utility and their entertainment value. Utility being how useful they are to people, and entertainment value being both the tier list itself and thoughts and discussions that could arise from that tier list. I'm also considering that the same tier list made by two different people could vary wildly in quality. I have consumed a lot of tier lists in preparation for this video, and in doing so, I found that despite this wild fluctuation, there is a inherent value to these tier lists and a level of completeness, specificity, and quality that is typical of each of these types of tier lists. All this is going to be taken into consideration when I place these tier lists in the tier list. Of course, individual examples of these tier lists could go up or down tiers based on a number of factors. They could be incomplete, they could sprawl in scope, they could be too narrow or too wide, they could be comparing apples and oranges. I find that tier lists that compare similar things or things that compete in the same arena are stronger and more cohesive than tier lists that don't. With that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it, shall we? Anime. I'm going to include manga in here because the tier lists grade similarly. Anime tier lists can be real useful for deciding what to watch in a season when it's narrowed to a season or narrowed to a studio, deciding what to watch there. But anime and manga tier lists can sprawl wildly. I've seen lists of someone's 100 favorite anime that they've seen in their entire life, and it's not useful in the slightest. When narrow, these are useful, but I find that the typical anime tier list sprawls a bit more than that. Discussion-wise, they can be pretty entertaining. Seeing how someone grades certain animes the way they do can really get you insight on their tastes. If you find someone with a similar taste in anime, grading things similar ways, and you notice ones that you haven't seen in there on High Ranked Highly, that's basically a curated recommendation. Fairly useful. Very good discussion. I'm going to put anime and manga tier lists right into the A tier. Anime character tier lists. Now, this is different from waifu tier lists. We're not going to call that. We'll deal with that later. These tier lists typically work best within a narrow scope. So characters within a series or characters that share certain traits and typically do limit themselves to that scope. They can be fun to discuss. They are absolutely not useful in any way whatsoever. These lists typically exist to praise one or two characters or really just shit on one or two characters. I'm going to put this over in the B tier. Character forms, final forms, various versions of the character tier lists. This is when you're comparing a character to a different version of that same character. As specific and narrow as that gets. Not useful at all, zero utility value, but very, very fun. This type of tier list lends itself to both completeness and specificity. All around a solid type of tier list. We're going to put it in B tier. Movie tier lists. Movie tier lists can be useful when executed properly, but I find that the typical one isn't. A good movie tier list focuses on an actor or a director or a year of movies. But even within those narrow categories, the movies themselves can differ wildly. And the reasons for a movie belonging in a certain tier will also differ wildly from person to person. For its potential entertainment value, comparing someone's different movie opinions to your own that can be all right, but it really doesn't go anywhere beyond that. I'm going to go ahead and put movie tier list solidly in C tier. TV tier lists. Oh, there's a lot of garbage TV out there, and having a tool to cut through it can be pretty good. Not a lot of discussion will arise from a TV series tier list just because individual episodes are where the real discussion for television happens. Rarely do you discuss how an entire series is better than another entire series, even if it's like a series of series like CSI. Individual discussion of episodes is good, but doesn't lend itself well to a tier list. I'm going to go ahead and put television tier list in C plus tier. Music tier lists. Oh, okay. These ones also fluctuate wildly in value. The best music tier lists are ones that compare one artist's work against their own. These types of lists are useful as they can help you get into a person's best work, or if you're already into their work, try to listen to some of their maybe less known cuts. And for entertainment value, these good lists, these narrow scope music lists, can lead to discussions of a artist's career path or different influences or evolution as they progress as musicians. But the typical music tier list doesn't do that. The typical music tier list is essentially a list of someone's favorite artists and a few artists they don't like in F tier. Weighing all that, I think that the best tier lists, although rare, do keep music tier lists out of D tier. I'm going to go ahead and put them in C tier. Book tier lists. Books take a long time to read. Books are inherently a slower consumed medium, so having a tool to pick and choose the best works of an author or the best books in a series, very handy. Even comparing different books within a genre, I feel, lends itself better to like comparing different TV shows in a genre. But entertainment wise, I don't think that book tier lists lead to a lot of discussions. Unless you are sharing a book tier list with a group of people you have read all the same books as, there's going to be a lot of, oh, I haven't read that book, so I can't put it in the tier list. All that considered, I'm going to put book in B minus tier, not C plus, because book starts with B. Video game tier lists. This is for individual video games. Video game taste fluctuates wildly from person to person, but finding a tier list that you mostly agree with means that for the items that you don't know, you can take those as recommendations or stay away from. That's utility. That's useful. Entertainment wise, people love just talking about video games all day. When these lists get narrow in scope to certain series, comparing different entries in a series are great. I'm going to put video game tier lists in a B plus tier. Game character tier lists. This is where tier lists started, as fighting game character tier lists. These are very, very useful. They're a quick guide to, here are some of the better characters in the competitive meta. Here are things that you should look out for, or things you should look at maybe to play. And they can be fairly entertaining too for games with larger character rosters. These lists are inherently narrow in scope. There's a certain amount of characters in a game. That's your scope. And these lists always compare characters that are literally in the same arena of competition. Very good, very specific. I'm going to go ahead and put fighting game character or game character lists in A tier. And this is game characters as they pertain to utility in the game. for game characters as they pertain to personality or your personal appreciation of them, just do the anime character one again. It's the same thing. It's the same list with just with game characters and not video game characters. In fact, for any type of fictional character tier list, that's the one. YouTube video lists. Comparing a YouTuber's videos against their own videos. It's the same thing with the music. It's can be useful for finding gems, can be useful for tracking a creator's career. But YouTube videos fluctuate wildly in their content, in the reasons why people appreciate their content, which can lead to some good discussion, but inherently make for a worse tier list. I'm going to put them in C- tier. Guiding game lists, these are rare, but I wanted to include them anyway. There are certain tier lists that just kind of act as general guides to a game, like auto chess unit tier lists, or like those auto battler unit tier lists. They're a quick at glance way of saying, here, pick these, do this. They're pretty narrow. I wanted to include them here because I think they're useful. They're very useful, not very entertaining. Otherwise, no good discussion comes out of them. Gonna put them in C tier here. Stuff from right under the TV. Oh yeah, this one, Pokemon, and I'm going to include other ensemble cast or character collection tier lists in this. Not very different from anything else. I wanted to point these ones out specifically because there's something you can do when a cast gets large, and that's create a comprehensive comparison tier list with every one of these characters, which can lead to some really fun discussion, really great thought while making or appreciating the tier list. It's a level of engagement that you can't really do with tier lists of a smaller size or scope. So I'm going to go ahead and put the ensemble cast tier list into B tier here. Actually, you know what? B+ tier. Video game minutia tier list. Tier lists for the frivolous details, the things that nobody cares about in video games. This is a Stardew Valley fish. I haven't seen the tier list of Stardew Valley fish. I'm sure it exists out there somewhere because people love dissecting and comparing video games. I've seen tier lists of best dogs in video games. I've seen a tier list of Smash Brothers characters by how angry they are in their losing clap animation. These hyper narrow tier lists are, in my opinion, very entertaining, not at all useful, but worth mentioning because I do see them every once in a while. I'm going to put them in C+ tier. Broad food tier lists. This is comparing a dish to another dish or a regional cuisine to another regional cuisine, a apple to a orange. Inherently, these lists are of sprawling scope and can't be complete. They can't be comprehensive just because there's so much food out there. Not a lot of discussion comes out of these. It's just like, okay, you like this kind of food. You don't like this kind of food. I'm going to go ahead and put this one right in D tier. Intra-type brand comparisons. These are a lot of fun. It's like, oh, here's a cereal tier list. That's the most common of these intra-type brand comparisons I see. They are narrow in scope and typically fairly comprehensive. Can lead to a lot of fun discussions, and hey, they can make you crave cereal, which is very useful. I'm going to put this in A+ tier. Intra-brand variety comparisons. So this is when you're comparing different varieties of the same brand of item. Very, very fun. These are a lot of fun. I have a few Hot Pockets tier lists that have had me ridiculed for putting pepperoni Hot Pockets in S tier where they belong. These tier lists are also useful for highlighting or pointing out varieties of a brand that you have not tried yet or were completely unaware of. These tier lists are inherently completable, inherently narrow in scope for most things. So I'm going to go ahead and put them right up here in S tier. Fast food tier lists. These were popular. Everyone has opinions on these. For a lot of the similar reasons to intra-brand food comparisons, fast food tier lists succeed. Inherently narrow in scope, the items compete in the same arena, though not always directly. There's a lot of different experiences you get at each fast food restaurant. These can be a lot of fun, mildly useful, and some good discussion comes out of them. I'm gonna go ahead and put them in B plus tier. Meme tier lists. Meme tier lists, they can be entertaining. The issue with meme tier lists is, well, you're never going to be complete. And the second you complete your tier list, it is aging rapidly. Memes are such an ephemeral piece of entertainment that, I don't know, like 2 months after your meme tier list is complete, someone's going to look at it as like, what are these memes? I've never heard of these. You must be 1,000 years old. Your memes are nothing to me. I'm going to go ahead and put these. This is our first F tier list. Meme D tier. They are entertaining, if only for a very brief period of time. Original character tier lists. I didn't know that these existed before my tier list deep dive, but they exist. People like to compare their OCs against each other or compare other people's OCs, but it's so narrow. It's too narrow. The target audience is like so tiny. Why bother putting in all the effort to make a tier list of your original characters? And no, I don't want to say no one cares. Your original characters are fine. People like them. People clearly like them. But the effort it takes to rate all these things, I'm going to go ahead and put original character tier lists in F tier. These aren't a tier list. Alignment charts, they're not a tier list, but they are very entertaining, and they kind of show up in the same arenas as tier list a lot of the times. For that, I'm going to put them in C tier, not a tier list, but entertaining themselves. The why would you make this ever tier list? Why would you make these? These are the tier lists where you look at them as like, what is this? This is just nonsense. They can be entertaining sometimes. They're absolutely not useful. They're typically just a collection of random pictures on a tier list, just randomly splattered all over the screen. We're going to go ahead and put them also in F tier. The meta tier list, the tier list about tier lists. Yeah, you thought I wouldn't put my own tier list on this. The meta tier list is a useful tier list and is extremely entertaining. It gets points for including itself in itself, creating infinity recursion, bonus points. Joke tier lists where the tier list itself is a punchline. I'll also include in here tier lists that play with the idea of tier lists or mess with the form of tier lists, like this Hot Pockets chakra diagram I made a while ago. These tier lists are inherently not useful. In fact, probably the least useful ones. And I mean, like, do you think it's funny? Do you think your dumb tier list joke is funny? Like the A tier, everything I like, F tier, everything you like. You think that's funny? Well, you're right. B plus tier. Animal tier lists. There's an entire YouTube channel. It's called Tier Zoo. Very entertaining. The comparison for animal to animal is a little wide, but Tier Zoo typically goes a bit narrower than that, and they're the number one producer of animal tier lists, as far as I can tell. So, a solid B tier. There's a little space right here, right between Anthony Fantano and the Wii U for that meerkat. Pet breed tier lists. All pets deserve a home. What are you doing? Come on. All dogs are good. No such thing as a bad breed, just bad owners or whatever. But can lead to some fun discussion. Comprehensiveness is not really an issue here. So many kinds of pets. All of them are great. Sure. C tier. Plants and other living item tier lists. There's just so many of them, and no one cares. Your plant tier list, good for you. You made it. You put a lot of thought into your plant tier list. You really like it. It's a D tier list. I'm sorry. It's not. No one's gonna talk at length about your plant tier list. They're not useful in the slightest. Like, how does having a tier of different houseplants help you at all? You just Google houseplant for this type of condition. Come on. Personality / physical trait tier lists. These are individual person trait tier lists. These are inherently mean spirited. Unless you like do a little fun remix, so it's all S tier. Ha 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 ha. No, just everyone's gonna disagree. That's fine. They're not useful. They're just guides to your personal taste in people, which if you are the kind of person who tiers their types of people in a tier, you're not my type. I'm going to go ahead and put that in F tier. Utility item tier lists. So this is for items that you would use in everyday life, not entertainment products. Stuff like paper towels or different brands of foundation or different types of wiper blades for your car. All sorts of just miscellaneous things that you tier list for whatever reason. Inherently useful. You can warn people away from defective products. You can guide people towards stuff that's really worth their money. Not a lot of entertainment value here or discussion, but a solid tier list in its strong utility. I'm going to put it in B tier. A tier. It's A tier. Entertainment item tier lists. I chose the Xbox as the icon here because a lot of these tier lists kind of reek of that same console wars vibes thing that somehow just isn't dead yet. This isn't limited to consoles. There's like toys and other items that you would purchase in order to entertain yourself. Most of these tier lists have kind of a bad vibe to them, like a real console wars. They call it Xbox 360 because you turn 360 degrees and walk away kind of vibe to them. I guess they might be an okay guide every once in a while. I guess they could possibly lead to some okay discussion, but I do not feel that that is the typical use case for these tier lists. I'm going to go ahead and put in C- tier. History tier lists. Why? Historical events, historical figures, it all goes here. Why? History has so much nuance, so much richness that reducing it to a 6 category stratification, even if you make it narrow, like here are all Napoleon's greatest exploits tiered. Even if you're getting that specific, it doesn't lend itself to a tier list. So much detail, nuance, potential discussion is lost when all you're doing is putting a picture of Napoleon on a tier list. So for that, we're going to introduce this mechanic here called the null tier. The null tier is for things that really just shouldn't be tier lists. So we're going to go ahead and cut Napoleon Bonaparte out here, put him in the null tier. And then the null tier is a null zone. So no matter where in the null tier, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to put Napoleon right over here. Next up is sports tier lists. They can be fairly entertaining. It basically boils down to these are my favorite teams, these aren't. You can have charts showing, oh, these teams are doing well, these ones aren't. And you just stratify them that way. It's okay. That's fine. Your discussions pretty much end with, I like this team, I don't like this team, or this team is doing well, this team is not doing well. Not particularly entertaining, not particularly useful either, unless you're gambling. So I'm going to go ahead for the gambling, put it in C tier. Celebrity tier list. Celebrities are people. Don't go tiering celebrities. Come on. That's not That's not anything. There's no utility that you gain from knowing someone's favorite celebrities. Not really. And the entertainment value and discussion that you get out of hearing celebrities, not their performances, but the celebrities themselves, there's nothing there. But for that, I think, do I put Robert Downey Jr. in the null zone? I think I might put Robert Downey Jr. in the null zone. All right. I'll put him over here. All right, next up is YouTuber tier list. Notice how I made the YouTube thing a person by drawing a face? Every YouTuber is just wildly different from the next. Everyone's going to have different opinions on YouTubers. It's not going to lead to any good discussion of why, oh, this YouTuber is better than this one because of this. There are obvious cases where maybe this person shouldn't be a YouTuber and that kind of thing, but I don't think that type of thing lends itself to a tier list. That's 2 in a row going to the null zone. Gonna step and step. Yeah. While we're on the trend of ranking people, your own friends tier list. These are another one where I didn't know existed before I did my tier list deep dive. Why? Like why I get sure you everyone has certain friends they like more than other friends. That's normal. But why would you make a tier list of them? So you can share it with your friends to let them know that, hey, I like you more than this person. Or like, are you like group shitting on someone? Like F minus tier. It can be kind of fun as a joke, maybe. But like even then it's like a one off joke that takes way too much effort. This also goes for Friends, the TV show. Also an F minus tier show. Politics tier lists. I didn't know that these existed before my deep dive, but they do. Of course they do. Again, with the same arguments as history, politics is deeply nuanced. Your political tier list is just going to be, I like these candidates and not these ones, and going to erase all nuance and discussion that could come from that. For that, politics. It's important to discuss, but the tier list, it's not a format that lends to that. For that, I'm going to exile politics to the null tier. All right, and for the last few tier lists here, I have a little warning. Horny energy is very powerful. It can do a lot of good, but can also be extremely destructive. I've saved these last 3 tier lists because of the prevalence of horny energy there. Okay, so first up is primarily horny tier lists. These are tier lists where horny energy prevails, where it inhabits all of the tier list and overwhelms it. Tier lists like best feet in Smash Brothers or top 100 thighs in the last 3 decades of anime. Sure, these can be fun. They're fun every once in a while. Yay, we're having horny energy fun. But keep in mind, horny energy can lead to self-destruction as just as much as it can lead to great works. For a list with a mild entertainment value and 0 utility, it's not worth messing with the horny energy in a structured form like this where it can go super critical. I'm just going to go ahead and put this in F tier. It's not F minus because they can be a little fun sometimes. D minus tier, sure. Shipping tier list. Y'all need to calm down. There are so many of these. Ah, oh god, there are too many of these. There are too many. They don't lead to any good discussion. It's people arguing over which fictional characters get along better with which fictional characters or make better couples. And that's a fine pastime. That's good. Do it yourself. taking the time to organize it all into a tier list to present to other people so that they can argue with you in the smallest of details. Like this ship should be B tier and you put it in C tier, and the level of effort you have to consider different every combination of any two characters that have ever interacted to really make it comprehensive. No. D tier at best. They can be entertaining, absolutely not useful for anyone. And finally, we have the waifu husbando tier list. These make up like 30% of the tier lists on the internet, I swear to God. These differ from the anime, manga, game character tier lists in that they are flooded with horny energy. So much that where the other character tier lists can usually narrow themselves in scope, the waifu tier lists just branch out and tear across any possible boundaries. Most of the waifu tier lists I see are just someone's collection of favorite anime girls from the past entirety of anime. They're all nightmares. The best kind of discussion these things could ever generate is an argument where someone puts your waifu in F tier. It's just not good. I get it. You want to appreciate certain characters and you want to shit on other characters. That's fine. I do it too. And you know what? It's it's not. It's not useful for anyone. It is kind of entertaining. It's got to be the same as just character tier lists. Maybe a little bit worse just because it's so dangerously horny. Well, that's it. That's my tier list of different tier lists. These are encompassing the most prevalent types of tier lists on the internet. Tier lists that I may have missed, please just look again. They're in here somewhere. I guarantee it. If they're not listed explicitly, they line up with another one of these things so well that you just gotta swap out one word for the other, like the anime character, game character thing I was talking about earlier. But yeah, there you have it. Half an hour of me putting tier lists into tier lists. Yay. At least it wasn't 6 hours of just rating Pokemon on a scale of 1 to 10. And I will rate all the new Pokemon once the DLC is out and it's settled and all the forms are revealed and all that fun stuff. But yeah, tier list. Half an hour video looks like. Yep. The recording took like an hour. All the research took like 5 hours. Go ahead and make your own if you feel like it. I can't stop you. Well, only you can stop you from doing this.
I actually don't know if Joker gains weight when Arsene's going. Probably. Wait. No, I lost my jump. No. I like, what's the funniest part about that is we were just talking shit about the Sheik Up B explosion being bad buff, but that was basically what that was.